Greetings, people of Earth. Welcome back. My name is Jax, and today I'm going to share a story about middle school. So much fun, very traumatic for me. Thank you for your condolences. Anyway, in middle school, I was kind of a little bit above average in terms of like academic function, except for math. Not a math girly. Um, but I played sports. I had a group of friends, this kind of thing. But I went to school with this guy, and we're gonna call him Bennett for the the sake of this video. And Bennett and I were pretty evenly matched in terms of like academics, sports, popularity. We even kind of like looked very similar, people asked if we were brothers to that point. And Bennett and I used to compete so, I wouldn't say viciously, but competitively for sure. And whenever a test came out, the teacher's handing back the results and we're like dead-eyed looking at each other. We're waiting to see what we got, and then we would tell each other what we got. And then whoever won would, feel as though they were superior. And we did this on all the sports teams. We did this with like the silly little middle school relationships that you have, with, which teacher liked us best. Like we just competed like constantly. And I look back on it now and I think like, ha ha ha, what a silly little rivalry. Like we were such funny little friends. But in the moment, I really like disliked Bennett. I really thought that, he was this guy who was trying to take everything from me and that I couldn't be enough. And I was always comparing myself and I was super self-critical. And I mean, to this day, I don't know if he felt the same way. Maybe he was just like, oh, whatever, like this is ridiculous. Or maybe he felt the exact same way I did. But I used to really feel as though I had to, stay in the same pace as him at the very least, if not, try and pass him, try and beat him. I was always comparing myself to Bennett and how he would act and react and what he would get on tests and everything. And then one year, this is in about grade 8, halfway through grade 8, Bennett went to Mexico for a month and he ended up doing school remotely. And I had no one that I really felt like I had to compete with. I had no one that I was like, oh, whatever. And I started making friends with people that I never even considered. I made the dean's list on the academic achievement thing. That was a first for me. And I was just like very, very content, very happy. And Bennett came back after a month, and realistically, I don't think there was any competition after that, and it wasn't that like I eclipsed him and I was better than him, and so I didn't feel as though I had to compete with him. It was more like since he was gone, like that like fierce rivalry kind of died, and I just stopped caring about being compared, and I think it's because we were constantly compared that I felt this urge to fight it. And it was kind of interesting. So when he came back, it was very chill. He ended up going to a different school the next year, and I moved on with my life. But I think I learned a lot about keeping up with the Joneses or keeping up with the influencers. And I think even, especially today, we are faced with an epidemic of comparison. And we are constantly told, like, Isaac Newton discovered the theory of gravity at 23. And Taylor Swift wrote All Too Well at 21. And, Greta Thunberg is out there like trying to get a Nobel Peace Prize at like 16 or whatever. And so we compare ourselves to these influencers and these like 16-year-old kids on TikTok living in a mansion in LA. Or we compare ourselves to, whatever our interests are. you know? Like, I'm super into spirituality and talking about wellness and health and that sort of thing. And so there are influencers out there that I feel like, man, these guys are just crushing it, and they're like half my age. Um, and I like, that's not a good thing to do, you know? I think we all instinctively know that this is not a good, healthy way of thinking, you know, to compare the grass is always greener on the other side. But like I said with my story about Bennett, we really do focus on, you know, our littlest insecurities, especially when we compare ourselves to someone else. And I see a lot of, especially these young boys, and I know like the young girls out there are absolutely struggling trying to look like Kim Kardashian, but like from my experience, from what I see and from what I could relate to, young men are really rapidly falling into this idea of like the red pill, like, oh, I gotta be grinding. And I see so many of these videos by like 9-year-old boys that talk about waking up at like 3 in the morning and going for a run in the snow. And it's a real shame. I watched a video recently about this exact topic, and it got me really thinking that, you know, these kids are gonna wake up one day and realize that they started adult life at like 9 years old. Like, I can remember being like 14 or 15 years old and still being a silly, goofy child with a lot of joy and very, very little responsibility, you know? And I'm very thankful for that. And some of these kids are being told they need to wake up and start grinding. And that kind of comparison, and these boys are talking about how, oh, I just got this sponsorship, or yeah, I'm getting ready to move to Dubai. And, you know, all these other young boys who aren't in front of the camera are probably watching these thinking, man, like, I'm so inferior. Like, what am I doing? And then they're going to try and take actions to compete at that level. And, you know, some of them, a small percentage of them might, you know, surpass what they're trying to compete. But the vast majority of them are going to suffer and feel as though they are inadequate and unworthy of love and undeserving of attention and a failure. So I think you need to apply this to your own life. Like I said, there are many people on social media that I've looked at and gone like, man, like, they know, they've got it together, they've figured it out. And in reality, no one has. No one has. And our comparison and the culture of comparing and trying to keep up with them and getting the newest style and, you know, going for preventative Botox or whatever it is, the constant cycle of this is really fed by our envious jealousy, our desire to be able to be on the same footing as these people. And the same footing doesn't exist. I mean, we're all humans, we all exist. The idea that somehow someone has a higher social rank than you, like, it's 2025, we don't live in, you know, Victorian England. Like, the idea that somehow someone is more deserving of love or superior than you because of their bank account or their appearance or their physical prowess, like, those are achievements and they can be celebrated in their own ways and sometimes not celebrated. But to viciously compare yourself to those around you, I don't think it did me any good. It certainly, you know, the situation definitely improved when I stopped comparing myself. I think the young boys watching Andrew Tate and these red pill gotta grind guys, I think they are very vulnerable, and this should not be a thing, you know? These kids should not revere this culture of aggression and alpha maleness, you know? And for us in our personal lives, watching social media people, or heck, even if it's like a cousin or something that you're always competing with, and there's like a race for who's gonna get married first or who's gonna do this first. All of that kind of competition is very toxic. Competition is really beneficial when, you know, you have a set game or a set tournament, and there are specific rules, and at the end of the day it comes down to like who works harder for it. Whereas the kind of competition we're talking about, where you compare yourself to a mega celebrity, that kind of competition is very toxic, and there's no winning. There's no discernible winning. You could go viral and become like a mega star and still feel the competition from bigger fish in the sea. So it's really best to avoid that kind of thing and give yourself the credit. I think a huge solution to this problem is personal confidence. And if you can learn to do the things in your life well and take pride in them, you really don't need to compete with other people. You know, you can appreciate their skills. You know, for example, if you wanted to get into woodworking, I love woodworking. I have quite a bit of fun with it. There's nothing wrong with taking inspiration from other people who are crazy good at woodworking, as long as you're not putting yourself down. You know, I used to see that a lot with girls who drew. You know, they did drawings or paintings, and anytime you look at their art, it was always like the most insane, beautiful thing you've ever seen. And they would always be like, "Oh, it's like it's nothing. Like there's like I suck. Like there are so many better people than me." And I always used to get so frustrated with that, because girls, like anybody who draws, guys can draw obviously, but you know, I don't have that ability. I don't practice. I don't have that thing. And it's so impressive. And then to hear people say like, "Oh, it's actually garbage, like compared to like this person or this person, like I'm no good." Like that is so disheartening. And that is such a death of joy. They say envy is the death of joy, and it is very true. So try to avoid that and just focus on what you are doing and how you are doing, and you know, be a little bit better every day. You don't have to wake up at 3 a.m. and eat a raw steak and then go hike a mountain. Like, that's just exhausting, you know? Like, that's just ridiculous. So, anyway, don't compare yourself to influencers. Don't do it. It never turns out well. Like, it genuinely doesn't. So, thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts on keeping up with the influencers, and as always, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.